My name is Kayandi Devonish, and I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. What that means is that I'm licensed by the government of Canada to help foreign nationals or permanent residents with anything related to Canadian immigration. And I'm licensed by the government to represent you in whatever sphere that you would need me to represent you in. So any information that I give here today does not constitute as legal advice. It's basically knowledge that I'm sharing with you in an open space. So if it is you would like to get any one-on-one or any personalized information, we would have to speak personal. But this is general information that I'm sharing with everyone here today. Okay? If you all have any questions, you all could always feel free to put it in the questions tab, because I'm not always able to go back through the chat to look at all the questions. But if you put it in the questions tab, I can have it in one place and I can answer it at the end of the live. Okay? And for those of who are joining late, I will be recording the live and posting it back up onto my wall so you can go back and watch it afterwards in case you missed anything. Okay? So tonight we'll be talking about Canadian study permits. You know, a lot of persons come to me like, hey Kai, I want to study in Canada. How do I get into school? From school, can I stay in Canada after? Can I work? You know, all of these questions. So tonight I'm here to answer all of these questions. And if you have anything else, you can ask me as well. Okay? So what exactly is a Canadian study permit? So a study permit is a document that is given by the government of Canada to a person who would like to legally study at a designated learning institution in Canada, or DLI. So I'll be using the term DLI a lot throughout the live. So I just want you to know that a DLI is a designated learning institution. And a DLI is an institution that is approved by the government of Canada or the province to bring in international students. So there are universities in Canada that are not allowed to host international students in their universities, so they would not be considered a DLI. And if you study at a school that is not a DLI, you will not be able to get a work permit. You won't be able to stay in Canada afterwards. So if it is you're interested in studying, always ensure that it's a designated learning institution. Okay? So when applying for a study permit, which is that legal document that just authorizes you to study, you have to ensure that you meet certain requirements while you're submitting your application, as well as while you're studying, to maintain your status as a student. So it's not a case where you can get your study permit, come to Canada, and then you don't go to school, or you decide to drop out. Because once you decide to drop out, you're no longer a student and you're in Canada illegally. So you must maintain your status as a student while it is you're studying and while it is you're in Canada. And remember, the study permit is just a document for you to study. It is not a visa. So once you are approved for a study permit, you still have to now apply for your tourist visa or your ETA, depending on where your legal residence or your country of citizenship is. Okay? So now, how do we apply for a study permit? So, of course, first you need to actually get into the school, get into DLI. So you apply for your program, you apply the regular route, like through the website for the university. Once you're accepted, now you go to the government of Canada to apply for your study permit. Sorry. So to apply for your study permit, you need a few documents. You will need an acceptance letter from the university stating your name, that you are the program you're going to do, the length of your program, and where the school is located. And of course, if they're DLI, they will have their DLI number and all of these information from the school on that acceptance letter. So you have your acceptance letter. You would have your proof of funds to cover your tuition, as well as living expenses for yourself, as well as anyone coming to Canada with you. So if your husband is or your wife is coming to Canada with you, or your children or your dependents, you must show proof of funds to be able to cover them for the duration of your program. Okay? You must also prove to an officer that you would leave to Canada at the end of your study permit or once it expires. So if it is you do not apply for a postgraduate work permit, or you do not apply for your permanent residence, once your study permit expires, you would need to leave Canada unless you change your status to a tourist. Okay, so if it is you're in Canada and you have a study permit that expires and you don't change your status, you're basically here illegally, which can affect your status in the country and also your visa for the future. Thirdly, once it is you complete, you have all those documents, your acceptance letters, you have your proof of funds, Now you would be required to fill out the application forms, pay your application fee, as well as submit the application. Processing times for these general application takes about 7 weeks, as outlined on the Government of Canada website, but certain residents of certain countries are able to get a shorter processing time of at least about 20 calendar days, and that is under the student direct stream. That's if it is you're from certain countries. So Trinidad and Tobago is one of those countries where you can apply for faster processing of your study permit. If you're from Jamaica, you would have to go through the regular process, which takes about 7 weeks. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of you are joining in now, so I'm just going to say that the live will be recorded so that you can review again whatever you have missed earlier on. Okay, and thank you so much for joining. Yes, so let's talk about working while you're a student and also after you graduate. So once it is you're attending a DLI, and I would reiterate, the DLI is, again, it's a designated learning institute, which is a university or college that is approved by the Government of Canada to host or facilitate international students. Once you're studying full-time at a DLI, you may be eligible to also work legally in Canada while you're studying. So to work, if you're able to work, you would have this condition listed on your study permit that you are eligible to work based on your study program that you would have selected. So to be eligible to work as a student, you must be enrolled full-time in your school. So if you're doing part-time, you will not be able to work. You must be full-time. Your course must be at least 6 months or more. If you're studying a program for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you will not be eligible to work. Your program must lead to either certificate, a diploma, bachelor's, master's, PhD. So if you're doing like a course that just gives you like English as a second language course, or just like one of the short courses that some of these universities offer, you will not be eligible to work. It must lead to a certificate, diploma, bachelor's, master's, or PhD. You must also have started studying already. So if your first day of school is September 1st, but you would have arrived in Canada, say August 15th, you are not allowed to work between August 15th and September 1st. You're only legally allowed to work from September 1st when your program starts, and that will be stated on your acceptance letter. If Canada finds out that you were working before, they would basically deny your study permit or take it away. They would revoke it, because you were illegally working in the country at that point. And lastly, to study in Canada, to work while you're studying, you must have a social insurance number, which you can apply for once it is you have a study permit. So that's like your tax number for you to be able to pay taxes, because everyone in Canada has to pay taxes, okay? Even as an international student, unfortunately. So once it is you have that social insurance number, you are now legally allowed to work in Canada. There is a maximum number of hours that you're allowed to work in Canada while you're on a study permit. If you're working on campus, you're allowed to work an unlimited number of hours. However, if you decide to work off campus, you are only allowed to work a maximum of 20 hours per week during regular school sessions. And during scheduled breaks, these could be winter break, summer break, Easter break, you're allowed to work full-time only during those scheduled breaks of the university. So throughout the school year, while you're studying full-time, you're only allowed to work 20 hours per week. Remember, Canada has a way of monitoring all of these things. So I definitely don't advise anyone to try to defeat the system, because they mightn't pick it up in the first year, the second year, but maybe in the third year they might pick it up, and then you basically ruin your chances of getting permanent residency or getting another work permit, or even studying in Canada again, because they look at all of these things as you basically disobeying the law. So they will look, if you did not obey the law while you're a student, why should we trust that you will obey the law when you are a worker or while you are permanent resident? Okay. So moving on, so this is studying while you're a student. Once you graduate now and you have received your diploma or your bachelor's in hand, you are now able to work in Canada up to 3 years. And I will get into the different situations or scenarios where you can work for the amount of time. So remember, once it is you were a full-time student and graduated from a DLI, and I'll repeat again, DLI is a designated learning institute in Canada. Once you graduate from that type of institution, you're able to apply for postgraduate work permit. So the duration of the work permit depends on the length of your study in Canada. So if it is you did a program that is 8 months or less in Canada, you will not be eligible to get a work permit, unfortunately. Meaning, if it's exactly 8 months, that's where it starts from. If it was 7 months and 364 days, you wouldn't be eligible to get a work permit. Once your program is between 8 months and less than 2 years, you will get a work permit that is equal to the validity of your study permit. So your program would have been 1 year, you will get a 1-year work permit. Your program was 9 months, you will get a work permit for 9 months. Your program was 14 months, you get a work permit for 14 months. So the third scenario is if your program was 2 years or more. If you would have studied for a program for 2 years or more, you will now be eligible to apply for a work permit of 3 years maximum. Okay, so all of these figures are dependent, of course, on the government of Canada. So these are the maximum amount of years and time you can get, but they may decide, which I have, it's very, very, very rare cases this happens, but even though you're eligible for a 3-year work permit, they might say, okay, we'll give you 2 years. And they would put the reason and let you know, okay, it's because of this reason or that reason. But in most cases that I've worked with, once it is you study for 2 years or more, you get your 3-year work permit once it is you graduate. And you meet all the other eligibilities. Okay? Guys, if you all have any questions, you all can always put it in the questions tab because I won't be able to go through the chat to see if anyone has any questions. And I'm seeing some persons joining now. I will be recording the live and putting it up onto my Instagram wall so you can view it later if you miss anything or if you want to go back to listen to it again. Okay? So getting into our last topic for tonight. Just to reiterate, we just went through what a study permit was, how to apply for a study permit, and working while you're studying and after you graduate. So the last topic on the agenda was, how do I move from an international student to a permanent resident? So by this time, you would have graduated from your DLI, you may have even worked in Canada, and you decided, you know, I love Canada so much, I would now like to live in Canada. So there are options that Canada gives for international students to now apply to become permanent residents in Canada. So I will just touch on the 3 most popular ones because there are many pathways. Yes, sorry about that. Yes, so there are many pathways that you can utilize as an international student. So the first program is called the Canadian Experience class. So this program is the main factor that is needed by a candidate is that you have Canadian experience, meaning your work experience is in Canada for at least 12 months, full-time work. And if it's part-time, it can be part-time for 1 year. It will have to be within the 2 years. If you accumulated part-time experience, they have the amount of hours. But it must accumulate to 12 months of work experience. You will be able to get that once it is you have a postgraduate work permit of 1 year or more. You will be able to apply for that once it is you have completed your 1-year program and your 1-year work experience in Canada. This program is run under Express Entry as well, so this gives you faster processing, so you're able to get your permanent residency within 6 months once it is you apply, and your points are very competitive under the Canadian Experience class. The second program is the Federal Skilled Worker Program. This is another Express Entry program that is done by the government of Canada. Although you don't require Canadian experience or Canadian schooling to qualify, once you have these Canadian experiences, it gives you much needed points to boost your profile and make you more competitive within the Express Entry pool. So just by some persons, they study, but they have their foreign experience from back in their home country, and they are able to apply. So you don't have to wait until you get your work experience like the first program I mentioned. But if it is you do wait until you get your work experience, you would get even more points. So you would get Canadian experience points as well as Canadian study. And as an international student, you get points for that. And that is also would be under the 6 months processing time for permanent residents. And the third pathway that you can use as an international student trying to move to become a permanent resident. You can use a provincial nominee program. So each province, I would have mentioned this in your last live, each province, they set their programs based on the needs of that specific province. And each province, they have streams that welcome international students, whether they have studied in that province or even in Canada in general. They have streams that help international students be able to live and work in that province and apply for permanent residence from that province. So remember, with provincial nominee programs, you have an intention to stay in that province. So if you apply for, say, for example, Nova Scotia through that province as an international student, they expect that you would be going to Nova Scotia to live, to work, to, settle. They kind of frown on persons who try to just, use their provincial nominee program to just get points to move to Canada, because they could take it back and say, okay, you didn't have an intention to move to Canada. And once they can prove that, you can get your permanent residence rejected. It is a little difficult to prove, but there are cases where they can prove it, that you literally didn't come to the province, you didn't land at all into the province, you just went, you wanted to come to Nova Scotia, then you went to Ontario. So it's like you didn't even try to settle or to work or to look for a job or to, you didn't try to settle into the province, so they can say you didn't even try, so you had no intention. So that's another thing I won't advise people to do, is just apply to provinces that they don't have any intention of living in, maybe because they find it's too cold or too far or it's not as exciting. But if you have a desire to actually go to that province and try to make it work there, then I would advise to look into the different provinces to see the best options available to you based on your situation. Okay, so those are my topics that I had for tonight. I'm seeing a few questions coming in, so we will just use the rest of time to go through the questions. And for those who are now joining, I'm sorry you joined so late, but I would be recording the live. Well, the live is being recorded and I would upload onto my Instagram wall for viewing later. Okay, so the first question I have is, how would you know if the university is a DLI? Okay, that's a great question. So for those of you who just joined, the DLI, which is a Designated Learning Institute, is a university or college that is approved by Canada to host international students. So they must have that approval from Canada, from the government or their province, to host international students. So the method of researching to see if a university is a DLI, you can go onto the Government of Canada's website. You can just put in DLI universities in Canada, or you can put in the name of the school you're interested in going to and just Google it to find out if they're DLI. And mind you, there are some universities that are DLI, and then there are some that there are only a few programs out of that university that are DLI designated. So you may have University A that is a DLI, but only 3 programs out of that school are designated learning institute that they are eligible for the postgraduate work permit. So that's another thing you have to look for as well, to make sure that the program that you're doing at the DLI is approved for a postgraduate work permit. Because you don't want to go to school for a year and then afterwards find out that you can't get a work permit because it was not approved in the first place. Okay? Second question, if my spouse is employed, can he apply for PR while I am still in school doing a 1-year program? Yes. So if it is your spouse that meets the requirements to apply for permanent residence, he can be the primary applicant and you would be the accompanying spouse, and you just get points. If you don't have a degree or you haven't graduated as yet, you wouldn't be able to get the points for graduation or having a degree, but it would be on his merit with additional points from you. Okay, once he meets the requirements. And the third question, any schools that you can recommend that I can finish a teaching degree? Okay, so this is a personal question that you could ask me outside of the live, and we can discuss further if you'd like. Okay, so Kathy asks, How do you know which programs are postgraduate work permit eligible? So on the same website that I mentioned, on the Government of Canada's website, if it is you do a search of the DLI, the table tells you whether the program is a DLI. It will have yes or no, and then on the next column it will have, is it postgraduate work permit eligible? It will have yes or no at that point. So once you say yes next to it, it means it is eligible for postgraduate work permit, and if it says no, it means it's not. So that is the research that has to go in to ensure that. But if it is, you see that just the university itself just has a postgraduate work permit is eligible, that means all the programs are eligible. But once you go through the list, you will see that for some schools, you would see that there are only certain programs that are eligible. Okay? Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions right now. And I'm happy that you're actually on time. It's 8:25. So if you all have any more questions, you can just put in the chat now before I wrap up. And I just want to say thank you. This is episode 5. I still can't believe that, you know, where I started from episode 1 to episode 5, and the persons that come to me and they tell me, hey Kai, you know, I'm so grateful for the information because they didn't know. And I'm just happy to help and to know that I'm actually sharing knowledge, and people are feeling more informed and they're feeling more confident in whatever their journey or their life goals are. At least you know, okay, this is an option, and I actually am playing a part in moving forward. You know, it's not coming from a place where I don't know what this is, or, you know, it seems far-fetched, or it's like that immigration law is too difficult. It is, but that's why I'm here, to kind of break it down for you all, to ensure that you all feel confident and understand certain facets of the immigration law world. Because this is just, of course, the tip of the iceberg. You know, the craziness starts in when you're actually applying. But this is just, you know, to share for you to understand the different programs, what is available for foreign nationals, and these things. Okay. So I'm seeing a few more questions coming in. Okay, thoughts. Oh my gosh, thoughts on Ottawa cap on study permits. I was reading that the other day, and it was quite shocking that the past immigration minister, who is now the new housing minister, was bringing this up, because, you know, he would have been part of the initial ministry when they were giving out so many work permits. And I don't think it should be that well, this is my personal view. I don't think they should penalize these students. I think they need to put policies in place for the universities to ensure that if they're bringing in a certain number of nationals, that they have places for them. Because I know, even like in Toronto, like studying in Toronto, it's basically, if it is, you don't have a lot of money for just renting alone, sometimes it's more than the study program. It's the housing market is very, 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 I think, expensive, especially in Toronto, and Ottawa being the capital as well. And sometimes students are taking advantage because they know a lot of persons, they want to live close to school, they want to, you know, live in the vicinity and not too far, and the prices are really crazy. But I'm guessing that the minister has his reasons for saying it, because they're seeing that the problem is really getting bad, where students literally have nowhere to live, and they don't want people coming and living in their cars, or I guess over like in a 1-bedroom having 5-6 persons in it, because that is like a hazard, you know, like a fire hazard or these different things. But it's quite unfortunate, and I'm waiting to see what they think, what the remedy is, because putting a cap, that's a little drastic. I think the universities should be the ones being policed, not the students. I'm seeing someone ask, will you be getting accommodations to stay? I'm not too sure what the question is. You would, once it is just studying, you would have to find, of course you'll have dorms, university dorms, and on-campus housing, but those things are usually very limited, especially for universities that have thousands of persons. So in some cases, you'll have to live off-campus, which you'll have to do your research to find those off-campus housings. Okay. So we have 1 more minute. If you have no more questions, I would like to say thank you again for joining. This is the last live for the season actually. Next season, I'll be getting a little more in-depth into like certain things I would have talked about in season 1. As season 1 is more of an overview of different immigration programs. If you all have any questions or any topics that you would like me to speak about in episode 2 and season 2, you can always feel free to message me or comment under the videos and I'll be happy to include it. Because I'm doing this for you all. I'm doing this so that you all could get the knowledge and be informed. So anything that you would like me to discuss, you can always let me know and I'll be happy to include it. So thank you again. Summer's ending, so hopefully the next time you see me, I might be in cold, warm clothes, because I'll be battling the cold. It's not that bad, but, as a Trini, I love my warm weather. But I just want to say, no problem, I appreciate. I covered work permits, I think, in 2 lives before, so you can check on the, on my wall. Everything is on my wall. So I covered work permits, previously. Thank you, Ambitious Island Girl. Yes, I do enjoy it. I do enjoy coming on here and seeing the questions and the remarks and just everyone being happy. So thank you again. Okay, have a great night, everyone. Thank you for joining. And remember, whenever you're looking to just get advice or just get assistance with anything immigration, always remember to use someone who's licensed and regulated by the government of Canada. Like, I've heard a lot of persons being duped, or they pay their money, or they're being rushed or being made to feel uncomfortable. Like, that's not how it should be done. And I'll be uploading a video soon talking about how you can find out if your immigration consultant is licensed. So I'll be doing like a step-by-step video so that even if you're not using me or using someone else, you could just make sure that that person is licensed and regulated by the government of Canada, which is very important. Okay, good night, everyone. Have a great night and have a great rest of the August vacation. See you.